to introduce to you Colonel Bernhard Altesberger, our distinguished guest this evening from the Embassy of Germany. He is Germany's Air Attaché and also the Assistant Defense Attaché. He is a graduate of the German Armed Forces University in 1985, receiving a degree in business administration. He then went on to pilot training at the German Air Force Academy at Wunstorf and has served in various staff and command assignments since, including as an air transport pilot, squadron commander, section chief responsible for concepts and operations, air transport command, deputy wing commander, and wing commander of the Air Transport Wing 62 at that location.
Before I begin, and I know I'm just standing between you and the dancing floor and the memorial presentation, but I want to say it is very difficult, particularly after your speech, Mr. Ambassador, not to become emotional. And emotional like that reunion, I want to say I really admire what I see tonight. Because meanwhile I'm at an age as well where sometimes I try to organize reunions or participate at reunions, and when I think about the turnout, which is sometimes quite disappointing, this is amazing, seeing you from all the United States coming here to celebrate this reunion. And this is really inspiring. So I see that you make it's you make it happen, and sometimes I hear comments like, oh, I have a maintenance schedule on my car, sorry I can't come, and you get that information on Twitter or text message, something like that. This very impersonal communication, so this is something completely different. So I hope you feel that I really enjoy here being tonight with you, and on behalf of the German ambassador here in Washington, Peter Wittig, I want to extend his appreciation that he has been invited, and unfortunately, standing me here in front of you, he couldn't come, but I think I was the lucky one that he was so busy being here in this wonderful evening and exchanging your thoughts, these lively discussions and memories you are talking about, you have in Bonn. So I'm really pleased, I feel privileged, and I want to do some very personal remarks, as I think politically and in politics it couldn't be better addressed, or very few persons in Germany or in the United States than you, Mr. Ambassador, to talk about the German unification in Bonn. So I will do some personal remarks out of my life, because when the German unification and this 25th anniversary is today, it's really thrilling for me thinking about that. I was just one of these 50-something million West Germans being fortunate, living on the fortunate side of the Iron Curtain. And I remember in the end, of course, you told me a different story today, and maybe the ambassador has much more vision than all the Germans. The German society could never imagine in reality that German unification might happen. It was just seriously unthinkable. That was reality. And at that time, Germany was much about economy, but politics and policy, we were very non-political, I would say. It was a non-political society. Of course, we had some domestic and foreign relations and affairs debates in parliaments, but in the end, it was influenced by the Western Allies, or by organizations we were embedded in, like NATO, or within the European frame. So the society developed for many, many decades. Since the Bonn American High School was founded until the German unification, was very non-political, I would address it. In German high schools, social or political issues were not existing. It was very limited. Politics was not debated. To learn something about our basic law or our national symbols like the flag and the anthem, that didn't happen. It was very, very limited. And I say that happened even in Bavaria. As I'm a Bavarian, I can say that, but I don't mention that because Bavarians, they make sometimes things quite different because sometimes they are quite stubborn and do their own things. But I mention that because at that time, Bavaria had the reputation of the highest and best quality education. So you see a complete different system as in your country. And I know that because my kids went to an American high school in 2011, where it's much about history. And our history, that was much about, let's say, the medieval 18th, 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, but it stopped almost in 1945. Maybe it extended to 1949 because that's when we had been founded. But beyond that, history was not debated. And so it was completely different than the experience you have at high schools. And of course you were privileged in Bonn in that respect that as a 15 or 16-year-old, you had the privilege of enjoying the German regulations on hanging out and and partying, right? And not as my kids when they were here, 17 years and 18 years old, and so they had to remain on diplomatic soil for that. So overall, as you said, Bonn was perceived by the Germans as a petit bourgeois provincial city, and we felt that this suited very well our historical responsibility, much better than the imperial pompous Berlin from the Prussian war, from the Prussian times and the initial first 20th century. The advantage of that was, I think, the Germans concentrated very much on economic education and skills. And there are quite many saying, okay, this is caused by the German discipline and serious, well-skilled, hard-working people. I think this is only half side of the coin and half of the truth. Because after the Germany had caused the catastrophe of the World War II, it had been the United States conducting in 1948 the Berlin Bridge to keep West Berlin liberated. And it has been the United States who offered generously the Marshall Plan to build a new country, to build a new economy, which, by the way, gave us a quite significant head start to the other allies. And you carried on this support during the Cold War, which from a German perspective culminated in 1961 when the Berlin Wall was built. And in 1983, when the German Bundestag decided on the employment of the NATO double track to put nuclear tactical mid-range weapons on German soil. That, for us, was the climax of the Cold War. And finally, as you have pointed out, the ultimate support, because not only the other ones were not in favor, they did not support at all, and they tried to prevent, including the last night before the signing of the treaty, to prevent the German unification. It was again the American and the United States supporting Germany on that unique path. And that laid the foundation, I think, for our great relation. And I think in the future we should much more talk about what we have in common, these values, the effort you invested to offer us a life, I say a life, of liberty, freedom, and pursuit of happiness. And to talk about much more about that, what we have in common, instead of what separates us. And media try to tell us what separates us. We have, like on a reunion tonight, I think, very much and good, successful memories and history and values. And we said, I don't want to stand any longer between you and the dancing floor. Thank you very much.
Ambassador and Colonel, we are so grateful that you have come to this reunion. And as a small token of our appreciation, we have these steins that were specially made for this reunion with the Bonn American High School sign on the front. Thank you. In Bavaria.